It was one of those nights when the rain didn't just fall, it poured like the sky itself was grieving. In a dimly lit suburban street in Oregon, a small two-bedroom house stood against the wind. Inside, a tired man in his early 40s sat by the window, watching the water slide down the glass like tears. His name was Daniel Carter, a single father, widowed 5 years ago, and every drop of rain seemed to remind him of the night he lost his wife. Bills were piled on the kitchen counter. The fridge hummed with emptiness. His little girl, Emma, only 8 years old, slept in her room hugging a worn-out teddy bear. The electricity flickered once, twice before settling into a low hum, as if even it was fighting to survive the night. Daniel rubbed his face, staring at the single paper taped to his wall. Room for rent, affordable safe, near campus. He had posted it online 2 weeks ago. No calls, no emails, just silence. He hated the thought of renting out part of his home to a stranger, but life had cornered him. He had to choose between pride and survival always wins. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the beauty of helping others when life gets hard, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness of Americans. Your small act of kindness helps stories like this reach hearts that need hope. The next morning came grey and cold. Daniel packed Emma's lunch, dropped her off at school, and drove to the construction site where he worked. His hands were rough, his back sore, and his spirit weary. He had once been a carpenter with his own small business, until the accident, the hospital bills, and the loss of his wife took everything. Now he worked long hours for minimum wage, returning home each evening to cook, clean, and tuck Emma into bed. It was a quiet life, lonely but sacred to him. That evening, just as he finished dinner, there was a knock at the door. Daniel wiped his hands on his jeans and opened it to find a young woman standing in the rain. She was in her early 20s, soaked through, clutching a backpack to her chest. Her hair was dark brown, messy from the wind, and her eyes, tired, anxious, and uncertain, looked up at him with quiet desperation. "Hi," she said softly. "I saw your ad online. I need a place to stay." Daniel hesitated, scanning her thin coat and trembling hands. She didn't look like the type who'd usually be caught in the rain like this. There was a softness in her voice, the kind of refinement that didn't come from hardship, but from comfort. Still, something in her expression and the way her lips trembled when she tried to smile made him step aside. "Come in," he said quietly. Her name was Lily Harrington. She was 21, a literature student at the nearby university. She said her dorm situation hadn't worked out, and she needed a quiet place off campus for a few months. Daniel didn't pry. He just showed her the small guest room, freshly painted, simply furnished, clean. She looked around, her eyes landing on the small vase of daisies Emma had placed on the nightstand. She smiled faintly and said, "It's perfect." Daniel set a modest rent, but Lily insisted on paying the first 2 months up front in cash. That surprised him, though he didn't question it. He needed the money. And for the first time in months, the weight on his chest felt a little lighter. Over the next few weeks, Lily blended quietly into their lives. She helped Emma with her homework, washed the dishes when Daniel worked late, and always left a light on in the kitchen when she knew he'd be home after dark. There was something gentle about her presence. She never spoke much about herself, yet she always seemed to notice everything around her. Sometimes Daniel would catch her staring at the framed photo of his late wife, her face full of silent empathy. Once, she left a small bouquet on the windowsill beneath that photo. When he asked why, she only said softly, "Because she must have loved you a lot to make you this kind of father." What Daniel didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that Lily was the daughter of Charles Harrington, one of the state's wealthiest real estate tycoons. Her father owned half the city, including the university she attended. But Lily had left home after a fight that tore her family apart. Her mother had died 2 years ago, and her father had tried to control every part of her life since, from what she studied to who she dated. She had money, but not freedom. So she walked away. At first, life without luxury was terrifying. No servants, no security, no chauffeur, just Lily, her suitcase, and the silence of a rented room in a stranger's house. But as the weeks passed, she found something she had never known before: peace. Emma's laughter, Daniel's kindness, the simple rhythm of their evenings together. These were things money had never bought her. She saw how Daniel struggled, how he skipped meals so Emma could eat, how he worked even when his hands trembled from exhaustion. Once she overheard him praying quietly at night, "Just one more week, Lord. Just help me make it one more week." It broke her heart. One afternoon, Daniel injured his hand at work. A piece of timber fell, splitting his palm open. He came home bandaged, trying to hide the pain. But Lily noticed. She watched as he tried to cook dinner with one hand, the other trembling in pain. Without a word, she stepped beside him, took the knife from his hand and said, "Sit down. Let me." From that day, things shifted. She began cooking more, helping Emma with school projects, and even fixing the old curtains that had been hanging by a thread. The house felt warmer, brighter, not just because she was there, but because she cared. As Christmas neared, Daniel grew quieter. Money was tight again. He'd promised Emma a small Christmas tree, but when he opened his wallet, all he saw was emptiness. That night, as Emma slept, he sat at the kitchen table, head in hands, whispering, "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Maybe next year." The next morning, when he stepped into the living room, he froze. There, by the window, stood a beautiful little tree, decorated with handmade paper stars, ribbons, and lights. Emma was clapping her hands in delight, shouting, "Daddy, look what Lily did." Lily smiled shyly, her eyes glistening. "I just wanted her to have a Christmas she'll remember," she said. Daniel's voice broke when he whispered, "You didn't have to." She smiled. Sometimes kindness doesn't ask permission. As snow began to fall outside, Daniel realized how much Lily had come to mean to them. She wasn't just a tenant. She was family, but life, as it often does, had one more twist waiting. In January, a black luxury car pulled up outside the house. A tall man in a suit stepped out. Charles Harrington. He had found her. The look on his face when he saw his daughter standing in a small suburban home was a mix of shock, anger, and heartbreak. Lily's eyes filled with tears as her father demanded, "What are you doing here, living in a stranger's house? Do you have any idea who you are?" Daniel stood frozen, realizing for the first time who she really was. He felt small, foolish, even embarrassed. But Lily looked her father in the eye and said quietly, "I know exactly who I am, Dad. For the first time, I'm not living behind your money. I'm living with people who care about me, not what I have." Charles's expression softened when he saw Emma running up to Lily, hugging her leg and calling, "Lily, come play." Something shifted in him. He saw his daughter not as the heiress he'd tried to control, but as the kind young woman his wife had raised, the one who could bring light to a stranger's home. Over the next few weeks, Charles visited often. Slowly, walls began to crumble. He saw how Daniel lived, humbly, honestly, devoted to his daughter. He saw the dignity in poverty, the strength in simplicity, and the beauty of genuine kindness. One day, Charles quietly offered to help Daniel, not with charity, but with partnership. He proposed funding Daniel's small carpentry business again, giving him a chance to rebuild what he'd lost. Daniel hesitated, pride battling gratitude, but Lily smiled and said, "Sometimes accepting kindness is the bravest thing you can do." By spring, the small house buzzed with new beginnings. Daniel's business reopened. Emma had her own small study table built by her dad's hands. And Lily, now reconciled with her father, continued to live with them while finishing college. And one quiet evening, as the sun dipped low, Daniel stood by the window once again. But this time, the rain didn't feel like grief. It felt like renewal. Lily sat with Emma on the couch, reading a story aloud, and laughter filled the home. Daniel smiled, whispering softly to himself, "Sometimes the people who save you are the ones you never saw coming." If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness of Americans. It helps us continue sharing true, emotional stories that remind the world kindness still exists.